Hello, welcome back to another video comparing Python and Ruby syntax. In the previous video, we talked about control flow statements with conditional statements and while loops. In this video, we're going to be talking about for loops. And unlike while loops, we don't really specify a condition, right? We specify the number of iterations. So in Python, a basic for loop is done with like so. So yeah, for I in range, let's say 10, and then you have print I. So basically what the syntax is you have this range and there are three parameters. Like in every language with for loops, you have a start parameter. By default in Python, it's 0. You have a stop, which is something you have to give, and you have step, which is by default 1. So here we have a start of 0, a stop at 10, and steps of 1. And this 10 is exclusive, so it stops at 10. So it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9, and then when it hits 10, it stops. So let's just copy and paste this and run it, and we'll see that you get 0, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if I convert it, you see 0 to 9. So in Ruby, we have this start. The start is not specified, so it's something you have to give, and the stop is not specified as well. So you have to provide the start and stop, and step is by default 1. So here you see it's from 0 to 9 because the stop, unlike Python, is inclusive, so it includes the stopping number, which is why you see that it's 9 instead of 10. And if let's say I put in x equals 10, and I put in x here, then Py2Ruby will not know that what x is. So it will do 0 to x minus 1. Okay, so let's say you wanted to input. Oh, by the way, let me bring this back real quick. If you do want to include 10, you could. If you do want to put 10 but not include it, you can do this, where you add another dot, so it's triple dot instead of the double dot. So if I did from 0 dot 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 9, we see that it's now from 0 to 8, not including 9. So this extra dot makes the stopping number exclusive. Okay, so let's say you wanted to change the start. So in this case, it's pretty simple. You just, instead of putting in Python, instead of just having one parameter, you have two parameters, which is 5 and 10. So this is start and stop in that order. And if I convert it to Ruby, yep, you guessed it, you just change that 0 to a 5. So it's pretty simple. And if I run this now, we get 5 to 9. And this one, we get 5 to 9 as well. So that's for loop with start and stop. But what about step? So maybe instead of steps of 1, I want steps of 2. So if I copy and paste this, we get 5, 7, 9. And in Ruby, you can't specify steps with this syntax. So there's another for loop syntax in Ruby, and that is you put in the number, and it's kind of like a method. So it's, you have your start number dot step, and you provide the stop number and then step number. So the syntax is start dot step, and then you put in stop num and step num. So you have 5 as start, 9 as stop, and 2 as step. And then you have this do I, which is this same I variable here. So it's slightly different. Well, it's very different, but it's just how it is. And let's say you wanted to go from, because so far we only talked about ascending numbers, so from 0 to 10, 5 to 10, we're going up by positive steps. Now, if we were to just do 10 to 5, like so, in Python, you see that nothing happens, right? Because we're saying start at 10, stop at 5 with steps of 1. When this happens, because the start already passed so the stop, this for loop doesn't run. And if I copy and paste this code from Ruby, you get the same thing. You start at 10, you stop at 4, but the step is 1, so nothing happens because start already passed the stop value. So you always have to specify. So in this case, we'll say -1, and you'll see we're back to the syntax. We have you start at 10, you stop at 6, and you have this -1. So if I cut and paste this, you have 10 to 6, and here you have 10 to 6 as well. Okay, and you see that before our stop we did -1, but now we do +1 because we want to stop at the number right before instead of right after. So because we're going descending instead of ascending, so that's why you see 6 here instead of 4. Okay, so that's for loop with number ranges. So let's talk about for loop with lists. So let's say you had a list 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's change numbers a bit. 11, 5, 19, 2. And you want to iterate through the list. One way you can do it is for I in range of length of list, print list of I. So this will iterate through the it will go from I to the range length list. So in this case this is 4, so we'll go from 0 to 4, and then print the values at the indices 0 to 4. So in Python we have 11, 5, 19, 2, and if I convert it, we have 11, 5, 19, 2. Again, you see that we have to do list.length -1, right, because it's inclusive. So another way to do this is it's called a ranged for loop, where you just, instead of access my index, you just iterate through the list. So let's say you have for lm in list, print lm. You see that we get 11, 5, 19, 2. And if we convert this to Ruby, the syntax is you have your list and you go list.each do, and then you pass in the lm parameter as we did here, and you just print element. So this is kind of similar to what we saw before with the step for loop, where we had the do and then we passed in the parameter. And notice that, like with every block, you will always have the end keyword. So another thing we can do is with strings. So let's say we have A, B, C, D, E, F. So we can say for char in S, print char. And you see that it changes because in Ruby, with an array, you just say, the list.each. But in a string, you have to say each char or each char. So let's cut and paste this and run it. You get A to F, and then in Ruby you get A to F. And of course you see that there's these quotation marks, and that's because of this the way Ruby prints it by calling P. You could also just say puts, and it will remove the quotation marks from your output. And yeah, so that's one of the nice things with PyRuby, is that it can detect what type the variable, what type the object that the variables are assigned to are. So if I converted this to a list, and let's say print s now, you see that it's back to s.each. And if I convert it to a string again, so it was a string, I convert it to a list, I convert it back to a string, you see that it's each card now. So that's one of the nice things about PyRuby, it can detect this these kind of things. And yeah, that's basically it for loops. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next video.